Gentlemen, hey, how are you doing? It's the Crypto Sniper. Yes, that's right. Bitcoin, wow, what's he been up to? He's been keeping everybody on their toes and scrambling. Yes, we're going to talk about the God market, aka BTC, Bitcoin, indeed today. And we're going to talk about how it's been the missing link for a number of alts that have been looking ready to go but haven't gone yet. So in that, we'll cover, we'll go past ADA, we'll go past DOT, we're going to go past BNB, one of our faves. Also ADA, pretty much a favorite. We're going to go past the Bittorrent. That's a new one, small one, Bittorrent, but why? That's also interesting. And that's one that we got. So you're going to get a little look in some of those alts that we still expect something good to happen. And then DOT, our unreliable girlfriend that we're silently and quietly dropping to the side. Yes, so we're going to be covering quite a bit in there. But first, to understand what's gone on with Bitcoin. Yep, so you might remember, before I go to the charts, you might remember I talked about the Francis's banana, the bending over convexity that was applying to Bitcoin. I'll be showing you a little bit more of that in a less banana-esque kind of style. But we've been getting a series on the bigger time frame. We're talking around about a daily time frame of higher highs going only marginally higher. So it's pointing to some degree of fatigue. So I'm going to go over some of the charts I shared, some of them in our premium area. By the way, for those of you watching right now, in the links below this, the description of this YouTube is free trading course. Click the link that says free trading course and register. Now, in case you're wondering, why would I want to do that? Because you're going to get to learn stuff for free from us. Why wouldn't you want to do it? They might spam me. No, you're not going to get anything else. You're going to get one newsletter once a month, and you're going to get video a day in the beginning, and you can make them go faster or slower to suit. All right. All you have to do, click the link below and get the free mini series. That is our trading course in the description below. Anyway, let's have a look at the Bitcoin chart. Let's go straight into it. What's the God market been doing? So you can see my screen now, and you can see something that I'm drawing. Looks a bit like a trellis in orange. This is what I'm trying to highlight here. Let's grab the pen, let's grab the pen, let's grab the pen, and draw. The bigger time frame type stuff, we had our high at 42K. Then you had a quite prolonged, difficult period for many. Many retail traders would have given back Bitcoin during this period. And it was a falling wedge. It came out, kind of bottomed out low, just above our legacy target. Just that was the 27,000 odd over there, which is where we went parabolic. And we went super strong after it and came back most of the way to it, just staying above it. Then we had a very good run coming out of that wedge. If you were early into that breaking wedge, this was just beautiful. This was just all plain sailing, largely up. Yes, you had a couple of odd down days. You had a very powerful pivot up from there to there. And we went and we went and we went and went all the way up to, you waited for it, 58K. So that was 42, that was 58K along the tops, there and there. Then you had another period of pullback pain for those that were leveraged long, didn't see it coming, and a steeper falling wedge that brought you back down to around about the 42s, I think it was, the close just above the previous high, 43 odds at its lowest point. Again, we got in long there. We helped you with that. We said, be early, get in long. You're going to get another good run. You got another decent run all the way to the top. And then you topped out at around about the 61.8K mark. So here's what I'm showing you. The tops are getting rounded out at the moment. This is a slowly declining degree of momentum. We don't use indicators to do this. We look at price behavior, slowly decreasing highs, yet you are getting fairly severe pullbacks. This at one point looked like a falling wedge. And still might do, but it had more downside potential, was the guidance short term that I gave the guys in the community. So all you need to take from this chart is a rounding out, hence the banana story, a bit of a rounding out. We'll make it a TG pink banana, shall we, so that everyone can have fun with it. And it was like that. There's your banana. And rolling over. So a slow, a decreasing amount of momentum across the tops. Great. So we close that. You can see that. Now, there's certain conclusions that you can draw from that. And one of them is that we're getting a little more tired. Let's look at something else. So we're going to compare the last bull market. Are we at the end of the bull market? To me, short answer for many of you that are in the comments. By the way, hit up and chat in the comment section. Be engaged with us. We've got 336 of you watching. We've got 75 likes. 75 people think it's awesome. There's no ads. The others would like me to institute advertising. Maybe we can get some transgender pink masks available for you to have marketed to you. For the rest of you, it's going to be great. Hit the likes if you want to stay. By the way, also chat in the comments and we'll reply to the top 5 comments as well. What are we looking at here? We're looking at a bigger time frame. We're looking at the weekly, and we're looking at the 2017 move up, and we're looking at what we've had so far to date. So there'll be some people that'll be big bears now. They'll look at what I've just shown you in the first instance, and that'll be, that's it for Bitcoin. It's all down. It's all bearish. I think they're wrong, but you will see them and they'll be out there. But what I'm showing you is it's natural to staircase your way up with pullbacks in the market. The final blow-off stage of 2017, that's the beginning of 2017, and essentially the top that ended that year. So we're looking at that time period under review. And what you'll notice is that the highs, whoops, let's clear it all up. The highs were getting inconsistently higher, actually. So you can see here, over there, that was a high, then you went to that high, then you stepped up a bit, then you were moderately up, then you stepped up, and then you had your blow off. And in each instance, you had a down leg of some form, pretty consistent, and you had roughly similar sizes almost, and then the final one maybe a bit longer. That's how we finished 2017. What we're getting right now at the moment is a little bit different. If you look at the blue arrows from high to high, this is kind of when the break started for us properly there. Although we said you had a feign and break moment there. So this is the breakout where you cease to be in this long run continuation pattern. That was the beginning of the real running. You'd sort of tested to go out, come back and revisit it, and then you went. So if you look at those blue arrows on the more recent history, that's October of last year through to where we are today, we had one super surge. Why? Because you're in an HVF. That was better than any one of these. Better than any one of those 5. It just went straight up, and it was pretty plain sailing. And that was the easiest part of the trade. We warned that up past the 27K. And in fact, you got 2 tiny red dot weeks there and there. If you look at where I'm putting dots, and that was at our second interim after the break, which was around about 19.7s. And it was just before clearing the all-time high, which got the whole newspaper reels going and all the headlines being made for Bitcoin at the time. Apart from that, it was plain sailing. Then you had your first clear step back, and then you had a much shorter move, step back, and now you've had a really tiny move and a step back. So this is showing a bit of rounding out momentum, and this builds on top of the chart that was on the lower time frame that I showed you. That was the daily. The weekly is showing that there is some short-term selling, slowing, loss of power, loss of vitality on Bitcoin. So let's have a look at the next chart, which will also further build on everything here, because it's going to give us a couple of indications on what's happening next. So what else next? So if we go to this particular image, so I like to look at the big time frames a lot when we are wondering about direction. People stop looking at the big time frames once they've become uber bulls. It's all about, yeah, it's only ways up. We're just looking at the short time frames. You've got to remind yourself of what's happened recently on the big time frame, get it in a context. And we were famously bearish here. That was a point where we were right. We're not always right, as ever. And we said lots of wick selling on that candle. That's a shooting star. That's a shooting star. This is a bear. We ended up with an inverted HVF and a downside target coming here. In short, we were calling a secondary high, a localized high, and a failure to run the all-time high. When many people were going, that's it, bear's over, new bull to the moon, and projecting into the future. So we suffer from recency syndrome a lot, and we get super, super bullish, and we don't see slowly the warnings that are being written in the charts for us. And that indeed was a down leg. You got a little bit of support for a little bump there, and then we had a Corona period. So what I'm highlighting here is candles, shooting stars, wicks to the high side that show regular counterattacks that are pushing you back, and hammering wicks as well. So I've done the hammering wicks in blue. I've done the top threatening wicks that are being pushed back against bullish moves in orange, because we've already got green and red on the chart. So you'll see there was clear sign of bull bias there, a little bit of a hammer pushing back. There was clearly buying for a sustained period along that base. You can see it came up under there. And so you went, so you went. Then you started to get a little bit of resistance, 50% of that candle resistance, then an engulfing going the other way. You had a red candle hammer at the bottom lows there with quite a reasonable fight back. You had what I've already described, the selling and the shooting stars there. And then this was a huge hammer rejection. So that COVID collapse and then that reversal, that was a massive buying wick showing you may have had enough success to get this far, but you've pissed this off properly and we're coming now back for you. And it really snapped back hard. Real big buying signals, those. Little bit of a hammer there and off we went. Now, reason we do all that is, what does it mean for where we are now? And here again, monthly chart, little bit of a warning. We did discuss this on our big time frames in premium area. It's the first time I'd actually got 100% out on Blue Pot a number of days ago. Why? Because it wasn't feeling right. And I put my toe in with just a small point and I ended up taking it back off again and not adding any value in doing so. So it is showing a little bit of fatigue right now. Showing a little bit of fatigue. We were getting setups on our alts, but as I've warned many, many times before, it's truck and trailer story with alts. You have the main 4x4, which is Bitcoin. You have your trailer with your motorbike. And if you put a third trailer on there with all your bags and cases, you now have 2 points of failure. When you're trading alts, instead of just towing your motorbike, you're also towing this third trailer behind your, the second trailer behind your first trailer. So you are a convoy of 3 units, and that causes lots of pivoting. Try reverse, something like that. It creates a lot more points of failure for your journey. And that's the problem with alt trading. Some of my best profits have been made plainly on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's right and I'm long, it goes. If Bitcoin's going down and I've got a good structure and I'm short, it goes. If your altcoin is looking good, but Bitcoin is looking a little bit off or sideways and could have a little bit of off, it spoils a lot of things. And in the case of DOT, certainly, the unreliable girlfriend, it certainly has. We'll have a look at some of the others. But let's keep going with the Bitcoin analysis, because this is some of the most important work. Because if you understand the God market, you understand a couple of other things. So credit to the Look Into Bitcoin guys. They sent this email. I'm on their list. Go and have a look at them. They're at lookintobitcoin.com. In fact, you probably see it just at the top there. And this is an indicator that they share. So they do a lot of nice indicators. Now, I want to clarify on indicators a couple of things. People get me wrong. I am not for mathematical formula on price data based indicators. I am interested in different data that often gets called indicators too. This deals with different data. Volume is different data, volume by price, etc., etc., etc. RSIs, momentums, MACDs, no. It's just manipulation of price information. So what are we talking about and what have we got on here? Very, very simply, this particular indicator that they got, I should check their website what its name was actually so that you can all get it. It didn't stick, so I will minimize that. and we will clarify relative unrealized profit and loss. That's it. Now, you can go read further on this on their website if you like. And I think it's quite interesting. It brings different data into the room in the form of how much, basically, if I'm to summarize this very simply, how much hodled profit people have made. So in other words, when there's recent movements of wallets, what average price did that occur? If there's big movements, there's lots of Bitcoin being moved, it'll obviously weighted average that price up if it's recent and the price was in the 50s. If someone's been holding for a year and his last wallet movement was when Bitcoin was 10K, people are assuming that buying and selling has taken place during this period when these wallet movements are occurring. So what they do is they take the total market cap of all Bitcoin currently in circulation right now, and they minus it by when the average of all wallet movements over a period has the price, what that price was on those dates, and what the aggregate of all those wallet movements. The idea is they're trying to understand how much paper profits in a bull market people are sitting on. The bigger that amount, in other words, they haven't bought or sold for a long time, that's people's greed holding on. And it's a big market. So the more money you're making, the more you encourage hodling. The more the market is fairly active and there's a regular wallet activity, the more people are taking off along the way as they go. I'm talking in a bull market, for example. So the brown line is their line. I went and drew a whole bunch on top of it. So I'll start actually with theirs because mine looks immediately confusing and messy, as you do. So let's just start off with theirs nice and simpler. The guys there added an extra band called Euphoria over the greed band. But in essence, when people are sitting with big profits, big profits, you're usually close to a top, especially if they've been hodling for a while and they haven't done any wallet activity. Things are just dandy. They're making money. So over here, you saw that we were close to highs. Bitcoin's price sold off. So Bitcoin is the thin blue line, in most instances below the brown line. The brown line is the deduction and according to the formula on wallet-based activity, as I've just described. So this was clearly a big buy signal. It coincided with the Bitcoin price there. This again was a distribution signal at relative highs over there and there during 2013-14. This was obviously a big crash that coincided with the 15 lows. Then it built up and it had far more trending up type nature, and eventually Euphoria zone, which is a new zone they've added, which is hyper greed zone, was the high of 2018. Then the supercell, lots of trade, very little positive hodl in there, and you're at an extreme low. Bitcoin price was a great buy. So capitulation is where you typically want to be a buyer. So that's the green zone. Note this is kind of 0.1, 1, 10, 100, 1,000. I don't know if I'd call it log scale, but it's certainly a gradiated 4% growth to some degree scale. It's not numerological. And from that low, so you've got a bit of a relative high. We were just starting to get a little bit fluffy there. Now COVID over there obviously was back in the green zone, and now here they have it. We're kind of in the euphoria zone, and this is where we're at. So it is pointing to a lot of people that are sitting on green profits of quite a big scale that haven't been moving for a while, because the more you make money, the more you hold on and the more you hodl. So you keep on doing those things. Now, in my chat and with my community, as I say, we look at lots of interesting things on Bitcoin. The one chart I did was just a bit of extra scribbling to cause mayhem on this chart. But I really like what the guys have done them, and I applaud them for sharing this indicator, and the people who did it, to Dearmaster and a few other guys doing great work and sharing it in the community of crypto land. What I would just say is the longer Bitcoin exists, the longer the tendency for people to hold on longer. Because it's not about a go bust. You're not in year one of something that's totally new anymore, where everybody's just cut and thrust in and out. after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, more and more people say, listen, I've seen this movie before a couple of times. You don't want to be long-term out. And so there's a tendency for greater hodling. Also, what I will add is, if you remember my normal curve, for those that are regular watchers on Crypto Sniper, let me remove that actually. That is bad. Undo. Those who are regular watchers of Crypto Sniper, you might say, remember that I said that certain things will be different this time round. And the reason why I think there will be small differences, and it's a dangerous thing to say it's different this time, is that the adoption curve is now getting a whole bunch bigger, and we have an entire reset. So I did a bell curve type draw over there. And what I actually said is, your cyberpunks that are really small, the first 10, 11 people involved in Bitcoin, you're on the tail here. They're right at the beginning. This is 09, 10, through to, say, 11 here. There's very little people engaged. This is just a thought experiment with a bit of practical implementation. Then you go into 12, 13, 14, you're getting all your early adopters here. 12, 13, 14. Some of you watching this might have been engaged then. I was really only in the next 3 years, 15, 16, 17, I came in to be active. That's still early adopter, but no longer the first posse of the early adoptions, more of the general early adoption. Now we're getting the early adopters of institutions now arriving. That's coming here. And that is now 18, 19. And for me, this is where we go parabolic first. The rate of increase goes a lot quicker here. Later on, you round out. Sometimes people refer to S curves. What they mean is that it's not quite an S, but it's kind of an adoption curve in that. I prefer to use the normal. Actually, once you cross this mark, there's less percentage new people to come in. The rate of increase drifts. There's more people coming and going in and out than there's new people coming in. So you taper off a little bit. That doesn't mean Bitcoin does that. It just means the rate of increase of new money drops. And the institutions just starting are going to be a far bigger surge than the other people. So my argument is this next cycle will have a higher overall euphoria reading when it's done. But that doesn't mean we don't have a couple of reality checks and dips on the way there. So I'm making the case for this brown over here to eventually go a lot higher, as I drew in the red there, at some point. I've also made the technical point to you many times. This is the longest. That's the Bitcoin chart in there. That's the longest continuation pattern ever formed on Bitcoin, and overperformance should be expected. In the previous iterations, you just had bull, dip, bear, bull, dip, bear, bull, dip, bull, dip, and then suddenly you didn't make new highs here. And that's where this continuation happened. And that is a huge change in the usual cupping up, concave move up with a dip back down, ever higher. And that's where that call was a very profound call, saying we're not going higher. We are forming a macro continuation chart. Now, the other thing I've drawn on here, and this is just our scribbling shorthand quickly, is that actually because of the increase of HODL, individuals are hodling longer because they understand the game. They're not going to give up their Bitcoin. It's been around now for 15 years. Different thing when it's been around 1 or 2 years and everyone's expecting it to be cancelled. And it's kept surviving. The bigger the monster gets, the harder it is to kill, basically, for the central banks. Who ate all the pies of the Bank of International Settlements, Carstens, came out and said it wants to be regulated, etc., etc. That is the banking cartel saying you don't get to have your own money. We control money so that we can manipulate you, we can inflict inflation on you, tax you through inflation, and also levy other taxes and call you all money launderers and frauds for wanting to escape a slave financial system. But that point aside, because of institutional involvement, there will be a greater degree of custody, greater degree of holding. I expect holding durations to extend the longer Bitcoin exists, and the involvement of institutions are not going to be in and out schizophrenic, highly emotional retail traders. They are also going to be making long-term fiat failure bets that they're not going to be shaken out of but for a 15-20% sell-off. So I'm expecting the duration to extend. So rather than maybe these straight levels of green, I'm more prone to draw angled up levels of green, which is what I was trying to illustrate in Thought Pros to my guys earlier on today. So if you're looking just at the brown line over there, the brown line goes like this. Let's see if I can find a brown. I might have to do the orange like that. Whoops, let's do it in a little bit thicker and freehand. It goes like that. For me, the buy zone might have started a little later, so you get in here instead of buying there. But as we go more into the future, it comes a little higher. So you want to be a little bit later on that second dip as well. You want to be roughly the right same time on the 2018 dip. And then COVID, this is the COVID dip. This was huge. It's the end of the interest rate debt experiment, guys. We call top on bonds on account of the COVID event. They stopped the global economy. They switched the power button off on everybody's business for an extended period. It truly was. 75% of business got stopped for a while. Some of it restarted, but you've been going on about 40%, 50%. Maybe in summer you got up to back to kind of 65, 70%. Then it was switched off again. I mean, that was huge. This should be much deeper in the green. Hence why I have the green gradient being an ascending line on account of expecting greater hodling into the future, and that this event was such a seminal event. Don't forget, they crashed Bitcoin below 4K on most exchanges there. That absolutely should have been and quite deep into the capitulation zone for purchasing. That was an absolute buy signal. So this is an upward bending line in my worldview to allow for that element of hodl. But otherwise, I applaud the guys here on their idea and concept immensely. I just tweaking it slightly. So again, the orange line I would do like that, and the yellow line, as I've done already, which is the optimism and denial phase, I would do like that, also going slightly up. And then the greed line, which I went for because it leans on the euphoria, I would do a lot higher when you start to get in that euphoria zone. And then the super, so the final highest point line up top there. So I'm mainly tweaking. I'm just giving everything an upward gradient, but sticking with otherwise parts of their model. So overall, I'm expecting a higher degree. So I just think we are at the greed zone to some degree, maybe not quite as high as they've reflected, but we know we're also seeing a sort of loss of momentum on Bitcoin side, store of value. We're also seeing that it's having an effect on alts, even in good setups. Will it remain that way? Will some alts be able to run? And we'll talk on that further as we cover. So this overall, just saying, we kind of had a good go so far. But I think this is going to be a two-pronged. You might come off a bit on this brown indicator. You might come off a bit. Not such a fat line. Let's go like that. We might come off a little bit, which could be a certain amount of bloodletting on Bitcoin, only to surge higher, as I've indicated on the red, and to go higher than the others before because of the extra hodl. Okay, enough of that. I think you guys understand what I'm suggesting and also what that means for us as traders. So short-term cautionary on Bitcoin, possibly, and then later a further higher move. But you're not getting on the bus now right at the beginning anymore. You've got to understand we've already had quite a go. From 10.7, we've touched 60, almost 62K. Yes, we're down 10,000 of that at the moment. We'll have a check with the short-term charts. Now, here's something else. When we look at the big time frame of Bitcoin, the most reliable indicator that is bespoke to us, which we'll share with you, but I can tell you is really, really insightful on our behalf, I think. The Coin Chicago Board of Exchange. In other words, the futures. So let me just show you. Most of what came before March of I think it was 19, I'm not taking too seriously. It had only just begun and it had only just started to get going. So that data early, too thin, a little bit meaningless. It wasn't being utilized, it had just been introduced, sort of ticking over, etc. So everything from here since. What we can see is that when we're super tight between the 4 biggest sellers in crypto and the 4 biggest buyers in crypto on the COT indicator, when we're super tight and on low volatility, it's a very positive thing. So you're low vol, you're quiet, the market's exhausted, it's finished falling as it had done 2018 all the way into this low. You have the sellers actually coming off, the 4 biggest sellers overall percentage reducing, and you have low vol. That signal there was an excellent signal, and it did run you up to the secondary high, the localized high, that we then said, hold on, it's going to be a little bit tired up here. When you get super wide, in other words, the shorts are climbing significantly above, the top 4 shorts are climbing significantly above the top 4 longs, over here, you get a selling signal. See that? A selling signal. That was the 14K, and later you traded sub 4K on COVID. And generally, even if COVID hadn't happened, been planned and submitted on you, you were in a largely downtrend during that time. So the long signals here are very, very good. And so are the warning shorts, which are the exact corollary, the wide points. Over here, major wide points just before coronavirus. Over there, very high level. The sellers were growing and growing, and the buyers were not adding. The buyers were not adding at all. And that was all throughout the continuation pattern setup period. Post this orange line, to the right of this orange line, is the breakout of our macro on Bitcoin. So your Bitcoin analysis, that's our breakout, a triggering event, and that's when it properly got going. By the way, super tight over here, low vol and heading lower. See that price behavior, squeezy, squeezy, Japanesey, tight, 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 up you go, little bit of a revisit, and then boom chakalak. When did we get super fat? The fattest point is there at that juncture, and that was your first major rest. It's not a short when you're in the macro bull. It was a short when you're in the continuation pattern. Different circumstances. That's why the orange line's there. You've got to understand how to implement things. And you've got to understand the transitions from phase, continuation into breakout. And that's what happens. So that's what I'm showing you there. What's overall happening right now? What does it mean for us now, you might say? Okay, all very nice. Thank you for showing what's been. I always get that from people. They don't understand. They're learning something, and you've got to learn your history to have some chance to forecast the future. They just cut to the throat. Just tell me what to do type people. I prefer the people that actually want to learn and grow and give you a chance to spell the narrative out. What's happened is we've had a big, big broadening, and actually we were winding up for a next tightening, which is good news on the macro bull. And I've speculated, who knows, at some point in the future, maybe between April and June, sometime, we will get a super tight sellers versus buyers squeeze. What does that probably mean? Well, the sellers tend to go down if Bitcoin goes down. We've seen that. It wasn't going too far. This was in the breakout, so it came down a little bit. But over here, when you're in the continuation, sellers came down. Man, it was huge down. Of course it was. It was an event. Sellers came down, huge down. Trend, and then the later capitulation. So actually, short and medium term, I'm not that bullish at all. I think it can go down. We showed it. We'll show you smaller time frames as well. But coming will be the squeeze we want that will reignite the macro bull that everybody will call over when this sells off. So it will sell off, everybody will go, in my opinion, on balance of probabilities, it's a possibility that has a high chance. So let's be clear with our language. We sell off possibly more, or we've already had some of it. You could have a little bit more. Don't forget, if we get down here, you have a little bit of a risk of a head and shoulders. That doesn't mean every head and shoulders performs, particularly when you're in a macro bullish upside breakout. But we've also seen pain on the anti-fiat, gold and silver today. Silver particularly been hammered. Final capitulation low, boom, boom, boom. What's going on? People don't want to acknowledge that these things are of a similar family, anti-fiats. So hope that's interesting. Let's have a look at your comments before I give you some more. Let's see if Elon pays his employees in BTC, says Jonathan Wolf. I'm not sure you do that while it's going down in price. I've been traveling the entire time. No corona anywhere. I'm greedy when others are fearful, says Mr. Wolf. That's very predatory of you, Mr. Wolf. I like it. Austin Woodall, if you're wondering whether we get high inflation, you need to ask yourself whether we will produce more over the next 10 years than the past 10 years. I think we're producing less. I think it's obvious. I think you know that, and I think you're right. Every crash is generational opportunity somewhere, says Jeff. Andrew Cross. So you might go up, you might go down. I think he's trying to simplify what I'm saying and minimize it to a bunch of nothing. Yeah. So it's building up, it's winding up for a bigger, better move coming during this period. However, part and parcel sometimes of getting that tight, if we to get that tight, it doesn't say it has to get that point, but it typically is like this intestine that it constricts. If you go the whole hog, we might have a dip in sellers, which could be a dip in the Bitcoin price. Okay, and that will be a very good opportunity, but you will all be afraid at that time because you'll be hearing Carstens, who ate all the pies, telling you how he's going to steal your Bitcoin. You'll be forced to hand it over. All sorts of tax treaties and all sorts of how they're going to beat you up for being a criminal, etc., etc. So expect all the fear. It will be harder to put on trade than you think. So that's that chart that I wanted to show you. So you're getting a bit of a setting of the macro, and it's pretty useful every now and then to look at the macro. How's it done? Those broad points, I'm just illustrating the broad points and the buy points. Slowed down at our 19, our second interim over there, pretty broad, and the other slowdown is illustrated, and of course the pre-corona, which I think I've already done, and then the long. That was a little bit fat and you went sideways, but you are now already in breakout, and then you properly got started after the squeeze. And you never got that fat. It was only part the way. And here where you did, you sold off. So pretty much the same thing, just illustrated differently. I think you've got that message on Bitcoin. And now to show you, and we'll have a look at this on the live chart because it will have changed a little bit. This is the inverted Bitcoin. The inverted Bitcoin. So the green candles are red candles. The red candles are green candles. We kind of had a bit of a structure for it, and we expected 50,250. Now I think it's come back a little bit, and it hasn't yet done this. So the short term is there's still an outside target on this. Now we'd drawn this quite a long time ago. We'd drawn it before it made even the second interim. I was showing this internally to my guys. We had that falling wedge return move that looked like everything was back normal with Bitcoin. That's a down, but in the real Bitcoin world, there was an up. So some of you are going to be feeling a little bit confused, and I'm provoking your autism here. It's all confusing now. But this is the scale here gets lower as you get higher. Here is your 62, and that is a 50K over there. So this still has an outstanding target. I think we've pulled a little bit back, but I'm not sure you can say it's all over because there might be this possibility that that still performs. So we'll go look at the live chart on the inverted chart as well as part and parcel of this. So there was a clear attack that went in the opposite direction. I will leave that and I'll go through to the live charts now. And as I say that, despite a little rally, you are getting a sell-off again. Despite a little rally, you are getting a sell-off again. So when this occurred, I didn't like the weak ascending. So I warned guys about this, that this was not a good third impulse for our rising wedge. We returned to this 54. Hold on, where's that 54 come from? Yes, we'd mentioned that in a long time ago in previous vids. And in fact, I will show you how it came about. And you will see that this 54 was indeed relevant. So if we just go back here, that's a bit too far. How did we get it? It came from here. We took a fib. We wanted our target and our low 3. And you'll see the 2.618 gave us a 54. So when I was projecting how high and how far we might go, I said a 54 was a big number. Go and check. I think it might even be on some of the headings as well in the title. It might not. Go and have a look if you want to check whether that's factual. So 54 was an interesting level. So let's go back into the shorter time frames again. And what you can see is that we had a small little bit of iceberging period above the 54. We actually came back down and revisited it there. We tried to get away. We came down. We smashed it with momentum. We came back up to it. That's typical price behavior. Then we came back up to it a second time and we did a little broadening structure on it. Then we smacked back down and revisited it again. Then we went up and over and we smacked back down and revisited it. And then we did a broadening structure, which again, as we were drawing over here and this was selling off, I was saying to the guys, I don't like it. You'll visit the 54 and then it's a continuation for downside. So we were out. I was already out all blue pot as well on that. Which means selling DOT for a loss. DOT was a terrible, unreliable girlfriend. BNB also cost me a little bit. I decided not to hold because Bitcoin's not going to be playing. The only one I'm holding is BTT, and wait for it. Hex. Some guys are going to get mad. Ah, scammer. No, I don't believe in anything, and I keep an open mind to everything. Yes, sir. And by the way, very high percentage of staking on Hex means it's going up on the days that everybody's going down. I'll show you those charts. That doesn't mean I'm recommending it. It doesn't mean I'm talking bad of it. I'm not demoting it. I'm not promoting it. I'm just telling you what's happened. But it's underperformed during the bull market a little bit for me because I got in at October and would have been higher even in Ethereum, which has been weaker, but now almost counter trend. So it's an interesting one. I'll just leave it there. So what's happening here? Well, that inverted chart that I warned you about, you still might have some downside here. And the bigger concern is if you were to have real downside to approximately this level, you might even set up a reversal pattern. Let's just go slightly back up again. This is a big concern. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm just saying it could become a concern. If this sells off a bit more, and you get down to levels like these, even if you subsequently rally, you may indeed have some reversal threat. Again, just because a head and shoulder forms doesn't mean it's going to trigger, doesn't mean it's going to perform all the way to its target. But if it does, and it does, and it does, it can even overperform. I don't think we're in that kind of a thing. I think we need a little rest because of the bent banana that I was talking about across the highs, a little bit bloated. Maybe. We've had the first wave of institutions getting involved. Now there's a little bit of a check it out thing. It's still new for many, many people. So we'll see. The inverted Bitcoin. Let's have a look at that. And we'll get the updates on how it's looking. Whilst it did get fought back against with that wick, it is still very close to target and actually making a green candle again. So I still would forecast that could happen. And by the way, if that happens, don't forget this is a first inverted setup in a new trend, so it can overperform. So that head and shoulder example that I've shown you could indeed happen. That doesn't mean it's a prediction. It doesn't mean it's a call. And don't forget also that would bring the top 4 sellers greatly down on that commodity, that futures indicator that I was talking about. So a lot of that would dovetail together. And that's why we've had a problem with the likes of DOT, for example, because Bitcoin's been weak. And that's what's happened. The man ended up peeing off the roof. Stop, start, stop, start. How many times did the stop and start? Nice first impulse, nice second impulse, ready to go. There's your third. No, stop, start, another sell off. Okay, sell off, another one. Well, stop, start, another sell off. Stop, start. Channels going up, keeping you believing, and then eventually exhaustion. And then Bitcoin is not playing the game all throughout this period. Big sell-off. I don't think it's run that low yet, but as a structure now, I would see more bearish as more probable. You could do a flag and you could still sell off a bit more. It's possible. That could be if Bitcoin is also weak. So it ties into that. This is no longer an upside continuation pattern as it might have been. And this is the 2 points of failure risk that you always take when you trade an alt. Here we go. You know, you're in there trading that, and it starts, and then it fizzles. And then you go, okay, we were a bit early. Bitcoin didn't play the game. Maybe you'll play it later. So you go like that, and it goes out the bottom, or it goes up to the top, and then it fizzles. So Bitcoin as a point of failure is real for trading alts. That's still why 65% of what I've made has been on trading Bitcoin. It's easier to do, and it's technically very predictable. So short, medium, possibly a bit bearish on Bitcoin. Longer term, we're going to have a major second stage bull that many are going to miss out on because they're going to be butt hurts and they're going to call the top. That's what I'm predicting as a probability. It's still a probability. It's the future we're talking about. I can't always be right. It's a probability. So what else happened about ADA? Let's talk about ADA. As we spoke about ADA, ADA's held on better than DOT in my worldview. So it's falling wedge. It kind of extended its falling wedge also as a result of Bitcoin. But the interesting thing about it is that it didn't run this low yet. So if I draw here, this low over here. So it stayed above the line. So if Bitcoin finishes to 50.2K, falls that little bit further, this will get dragged down. But if it supports above here, it's a good base. If Bitcoin then has progress decay and pulls back a little bit, let's assume it doesn't overperform, ADA could rebuild. If Bitcoin continues a collapse, goes into 49.9s, 48s, 47s, 46s, this will likelihood, because it has been affected by Bitcoin's performance, break this level and also have a sell-off once people relent. And actually, the tokens that have high percentage stakes on them, where most of the people are happy to earn their 30% and are fully staked, will have no sellers because everybody's tied their money up and they don't care. So they're hodling through the crash. And that will actually see values go up because other people will see relatively those staking tokens are holding their value in a bear market, and they'll move out of their sinking tokens. Because actually a surplus supply of nervous people that all want to sell when they get afraid is what ruins price. So more people that have locked up are better. So it is an interesting concept, regardless what you say. Then there's Ethereum. Let's talk to you about Ethereum. Because Ethereum was doing so well, and then she died. And that was your head and shoulder locally that has been made. And as I say, a head and shoulder can still run further. It can still run further. There was your left shoulder. That was your higher head, and then quite a lengthy bear flag type channel that did a partial break and then set up a little inverted knocking up against that basing ascending grind line, spiller broadening structure as well, which is continuation through to the target. Boom. So it might be short-term over for Ethereum. If Bitcoin just finishes the job maybe, or even doesn't and stay, we might get a bit of a rally. But don't forget, head and shoulders don't just necessarily make the head and shoulder target. They're a cyclical turning point. and they could go further. So we're waiting to see. But a little bit of rally time now after having made this target at 1578. Don't forget it was as high as 2 grand at one point. And you could have shorted it over there. I didn't. I'm not interested in shorting in this macro bull generally. Very rare occasion that I'll take it. I'll need very good structure to do it. Just because things could revert bullish very quickly. The dollar is a piece of garbage. They're going to keep printing. They're going to do new stimuluses. They're going to do a lot of things. Let's have a look at your comments again. Holo chain is Bittorrent plus Git. Yeah, a whole bunch of information there. Enable humans to interact with each other by mutual consent. Sito Rosoko, Litecoin to fizzle 2, targeting 120 before entering again. Yep, it's going to be tied. Litecoin will be tied to the overall correlation. Dollar is bullish on the 2 year. So dollar is in a turnaround for now as a currency. We've got the emergings on the run in the form of the lira, which is once again in collapse. It's a specifically bad one, but the dollar is currently in this falling wedge. Some guys say we're always late. I think we're pretty damn early. We called it there on the dollar index, and again there, return move, and you've since had this break up and it's heading, but it's kind of grinding here, so it could get a bit tired, and it's not going to be straight run super strong. If it does go straight run super strong, expect a swathe of reset. In other words, rand, peso, rupee, that'll be the whole FX. Then you know reset's in full swing. And also then at some point then Bitcoin, gold and silver will run with a running dollar. That will be confirmation that you're now in the Lehman's moment of reset. When people ask when's reset, I say it's already happening. It's happening all around you. But what I think they're meaning is when's Lehman's moment? You know, when everyone stopped and everyone thought, wow, this really is getting that bad. That's just an inflection from bad, 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 awful. That's what they want. They want to know when's that specific moment, and I keep telling you, whatever happens, that leads that to happen. All the FX emergings failing, dollar pumping, and gold, silver, and Bitcoin pumping on a failing dollar. That is the Lehman's moment. By the way, I tied this also to debt. So this is outside most of your crypto awareness, but TLT. We've said we said a year ago, March, that the debt market topped. This is the 20-year debt market, the debt of government. People are to stop buying government debt. Well, you don't buy it, but the pensions and the big banks support the cartel. And this is a potential massive head and shoulder. And we've suggested it would be a head and shoulder, and it's continued to comply with exactly what we've suggested. So the debt market, Bitcoin and gold are anti-fiat. Fiat is debt. The debt and fiat system pretty much hand in hand. So this was the high point of the debt market right there. I've done this on the Market Sniper. You can go and check it out. But this is really, really key. So there was a bit of a rally in debt here, which has put pressure on silver and Bitcoin. It's not much of a rally in truth, but there's other reasons that Bitcoin faced a bit of pressure. The man who ate all the pies spoke and said dumb shit, and people still listen. So, you know, it happens. And silver's probably being hit for a similar reason. But now it's turning down. We still have a target down here for the TLT, 20-year debt. So that means it's going to go down again. That should give a little bit of relief to the anti-fiats, both silver, gold, and Bitcoin. Remember, silver and gold aren't your enemies. They're just the physical versions of what you love in crypto. Forget the whole Peter Schiff thing. Have fun with him. Fair enough. He was stupid enough to antagonize crypto. But at the same time, he's right about the system failure, and he's part of the anti-fiat larger family. Silver and gold is part of that. And so what do we think comes? Well, that was our prediction a while ago, and the chart's pretty much following it. I mean, I did it over here. We expected it to break out of this triangle. It gapped down. It's made our working neckline. Remember, we haven't yet got a right shoulder. We're guessing. We're scenario casting forward. That's what we do. That's why you should go to the description details below and click the link that says free trading course and go and submit your details and get a video so that you can learn to do this too for nothing. That's right. There's no reasons why you shouldn't. Anyway, so back down to make this target, for example, and then we'll get a rally again. That will again put pressure on Bitcoin, I think, to a degree. Maybe not so much. We seem to be very sensitive now. It might be that Bank of International Settlements thing more. It's difficult to know which has caused the most heat. It also was tiring, momentum-wise, technically, with those separate highs getting round. It needed that. Technically, it was indicating that. We had that draw for a while. We did this draw for a while some time ago. If I go to Twitter and have a look there, we sent out a chart, a lot of retweets. Thanks for that, by the way. We sent out this fella. So if you're not following at the Crypto Sniper, you'll also... Doing YouTubes takes ages. Updating people on YouTube takes a lot of prep. We use a Wacom screen. I get charts ready. I have a support person helping me. We get set up on the screen. You aren't going to get timeous alerts that are minute sensitive, I'm afraid, guys. You're going to get it when we're free. And I have a premium group of people that are respected with money that get extra attention when there's key pivotal events. That means I fall quiet. It's not I'm hiding. It means I'm looking after my own trading and the people that most need my care and have earned the right to it. So Freeview becomes secondary. So this was something we discussed. There's the TG Pink Banana, and these were scenarios. Now we thought at one point the gray would be the primary scenario. Let me draw that one, and we've pivoted to what looks like the red. And in actual fact, I should have been more biased to the red in the first place because of that loss of momentum, expecting us to hold a level and squeeze instead of actually make marginally lower lows and actually let out some of that selling maybe was the wrong call. I didn't think we were going to do the green. I thought the gray, but maybe I should have been more open to the red. But that is a scenario cast of how we go. And then what happens now is you either dribble out the bottom, bump, or we break up. We have a little dip and then we recover. So but there's two recovery items in there. It's just a question of how far down. Will we go that far down? If we do go that far down, that's when you have the risk of a shoulder. So this was some time ago over here. We were already scenario casting. We called for it to be a tightening event. We eliminated broadening events. We eliminated ledgers. We eliminated breakup price behavior. We said there's going to be a constriction, and that's turned out correct. And at the moment, it's the red, not the gray. So this is kind of what we do on an ongoing basis. We already probability scenario casting, and this was our highest likelihood. A tightening event and flat or down. So falling wedge or symmetrical. So let's just have a look at it again. So you understand where we stand on debt. There could be another rally to come for the right shoulder that could lead to pressure again on gold, silver, Bitcoin. And thereafter, if we break this 135, that's it for the debt markets. There's actually a target right down at 89. Debt will be worth considerably less. And the interest rates that will be demanded will be rather high. It will be very turbulent times. Expect supply shortages. I'm seeing that Suez Canal is blocked up at the moment. There's funky stuff being planned for us. And the markets that brings this kind of collapse in debt. Look, it took a year to get down here. So it's not tomorrow. It's taken a year. First thing it did was snap back, rally most of it, and then hold most of it before giving us an ascending inverted HVF, first in a new trend. But you do get overperformance, and you've got a head and shoulder possibility. So this is reset. You're looking at the chart of reset, the death of debt markets. But let's go back to Bitcoin. I'm going to show you BNB, which I haven't done yet, as well after that. And I will show you one or two other images How are you guys doing though? Are you surviving? Hopefully not max leverage long when all of this went down. So we also spoke about that 54. I've proved how that 54 level came. It's your 2.618 on our first cup gold nugget. And it was also, it's magical, this guy, by the way, guys. It's pretty magical. Here was the 54. There was the broadening. There was the revisits. There was the revisit, dip through, revisit, revisit. Then we did the broadening structure. Where did you break? You broke our basing ascending grind line of the megaphone. There's your bear pole. There's your megaphone with the splitter. And what did you get? It all happened at our 54 line. It literally is the sniper's sights there. Like that. Bang. That was the moment. And we were all getting out during the sell-off here, because we were aware of that risk. That's what it cost you by not being a sniper. That's what it cost you. And now look, you got that flag and you got another leg. So it's quite a bit lower. Questions. Nobody believes that debt will ever be paid for. No, it won't. No leverage long. Good, smart. Just hodl.
Can you also take a look at crypto total?
Crypto?
Total.
Crypto total, yes. Total market caps, yep. We'll have a look at that. So let me finish Binance, because we were also optimistic. I think I pulled it up. It did better than DOT, but in the end it eventually succumbed to the gravity of the situation with Bitcoin. But it could still be a structural setup. It just got a little bit of disorderly selling in the end. It attempted for an extended period to hold the level while Bitcoin was weak. And then eventually it succumbed. And given now that it succumbed, it could still come quite a long way. This structure only really gets invalidated at 187. So it could come lower and still work out for us. So nice big structure here. Could do that. It could come down a little bit, could make a base and can come up again. This will still at some point give us our 400 run when we go back to bull. Difficult to think of now while everything's looking so weak and selling. Don't worry. The seasons change, guys. They always do. Don't lose your mind. But don't suffer from excessive recency syndrome. And so that is Binance. And then Bittorrent. Still in this one. But it's hanging on, and I'll probably get beaten up if it finally relents. It had a huge structure prior, which it overperformed on. So it's doing all right. And then we got up to this level. It was looking okay. And then Bitcoin started its tricks, and now it's got a little bit broken up. Can it hold this low, or will it make a marginally lower low? If it goes below that, then we have a complex second impulse. So it's kind of just hanging on. A little bit nervy. Might have to distribute it, get out of it slowly if Bitcoin goes for more downside. If Bitcoin just runs its 5,200, turns around and it starts pulling back with strength, these trades may survive. BTT and Binance. DOT thrown out. Too unreliable girlfriend. So that's the challenge of alt trading. You need Bitcoin to play too. And he hasn't done so. And he was warning us. He did warn that he was slowing up. Total. Somebody asked for total. I'll do total and total 2. Have you registered for your mini series? The free trading course in the description of the YouTube links below. Go and click it and start getting skill sets for yourself to take you to the next level on your trading. We're not talking about minor improvements. Quantum shift your ability to read charts. Click on the free trading course in the description of this YouTube below, and you will be able to start that process. That doesn't mean you won't ever be wrong. We're still wrong all the time. So Total 2 has a large amount of the DNA of Ethereum, I'm afraid. You did a broadening structure there, which meant you were going to fall. You're on your neckline. I actually tweeted this out. If you're not following at the Crypto Sniper, and I would suggest for the bigger world macro at the Market Sniper, you should do so on Twitter. And that target has been made. So we may get a bit of a rest. We also visited a previous purple line. There's a cluster of key levels there that came from the interim on this setup way back then. So total 2, like Ethereum, might rest a little bit. You're getting a lot of Ethereum DNA in this because it's the biggest of the lot. We can look at total, and you're going to get a lot of Bitcoin DNA in that. Still got a tiny localized head and shoulder that's also performed in there on total. See that target there. So you've got a double set of lines also here that have just been run. So that might point to some relief soon. Some relief soon. 1.5 trillion, big blue line here. 1.8 trillion we couldn't hold. The 175 was a big one. We just traded up to, we couldn't hold. 1.5 trillion here. We might dip and touch the 1.5 if Bitcoin does the run through the 52. And that would be a push through. And then we'll see what happens after that. Good. Let's show you final charts. I'll show you what a staking. If a lot of the sellers are all staked up, how does the chart perform? Well, again, this is just a technical assessment. It's not a punt. Actually, Hex has underperformed during the bull market since I got on, but it did exceedingly well since the beginning. It's broken a falling wedge against ETH, but it was off a low base, but it's done that. So there are people that are interested in this. This is a highly staked token. There's not so much to be sold. It's broken. Big, pretty big, bouncing along, crossed and broken. So that means Ethereum is now underperforming a highly staked token which doesn't have a big overhang of sellers. And what about against the dollar, which is the USDC? I will show you that as well. Point of interest. You don't have to like it. I'm just finding it interesting for our times. In fact, let's get a live chart. I don't like these black backgrounds particularly. I'm sure I could change it somewhere. But I've had a doubling at 2.33 in my sites ever since getting in the 1.1s, 1.2s, 1.3s. It's triggered, had a little pullback. It's making some progress. It's got until June to do it. So end of May. We'll see. Could be wrong. Don't take it personal. This is me charting things that might go up and not making moral calls on people or anything like that. Know your risks. Whenever you do something, consider the liquidity. You've got to be able to get in. You've got to be able to get out. Small chance still here that we make this target though. And that's something that I would say you don't have to be in Bitcoin right now. Watch out in case that 50,200 comes. And if it turns into something a little bit bigger, however much it sells off, think of that COT indicator coming back down. Think of that COT indicator coming back down, setting up your future move to the upside in all of crypto, including some of your favorite alts, some of which setups were spoiled by Bitcoin. That will come back into flavor. They will get going back on their bikes. All that happens is it gets postponed. It gets postponed until the bull is ready to resume. And unfortunately for you, there is a lead bull. And he's a real bison of a bull. And his name's Bitcoin. And he decides when everybody dances. And if he gets too upset, nobody gets a chance to dance. Unless it's a counter-cyclical token that's highly staked, for example. That's it from me. I'm going to learn to finish quicker and faster. Thank you for subbing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your comments. I'll answer 5. We will catch you next time. Don't forget to hit the bell. People are being unsubscribed and unnotified into whatever Google whenever they feel like it. Hit always. We'll catch you next time. I'm Francis. Goodbye.